Breaking news from around your world on this Monday, August 12th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Attorney General William Barr said Monday that there were serious irregularities at the federal jail facility in Manhattan where accused sex offender Jeffrey Epstein allegedly committed suicide. At a law enforcement gathering in New Orleans, Barr said, "We will get to the bottom of what happened and there will be accountability." Barr also had a warning for anyone involved in the supposedly wealthy financier's alleged crimes, vowing any co-conspirators should not rest easy. The victims deserve justice, and they will get it. The FBI joined the Justice Department's Office of Inspector General, which is investigating the matter. The president of the local jail staffers union said guards in Epstein's prison unit were working extreme overtime shifts due to staffing shortages when Epstein took his own life. The union official said the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan has less than 70% of the correctional officers it needs. Investigators said 2 guards on duty the night before Epstein was found dead were supposed to check on him every 30 minutes, but didn't. Epstein was placed on suicide watch July 23rd after he was found unconscious in his cell with marks on his neck, but he was removed from suicide watch less than a week later. The 66-year-old Epstein was charged last month with sex trafficking minors and faced up to 45 years in prison. Nearly 4 dozen people have died from Typhoon Lakima in China after the storm made a second landfall in Qingdao City. China's National Meteorological Center downgraded Lakima to a tropical storm Monday as it reached the city. Officials said at least 44 people have died as a result of the storm, and several more are missing. The storm damaged more than 427 acres of crops and destroyed 34,000 homes. Forecasters said Lakima initially landed on shore with winds up to 116 miles per hour, equivalent to a Category 3 hurricane. It was the 3rd strongest to ever hit China's Zhejiang province. In that province, nearly 5 million people were affected by the storm, and more than 1 million people were evacuated from the area over the weekend. In Shanghai, 250 people had to be evacuated from their homes. The Chinese military aided in rescues in Taizhou and Zhejiang and were helping residents who had no electricity. Chinese authorities stopped high-speed train service to and from Shanghai and canceled all commercial flights. Heavy monsoon rains in India have killed more than 160 people as landslides and overflowing rivers damaged villages across 4 states. Local officials said the death toll stands at about 165 across western India after days of torrential rain, which have also displaced thousands. Some 400,000 people have been relocated from 761 flood-affected villages in the state to safety. The Indian Coast Guard and the Indian Air Force, among other emergency services, have been working to rescue those stranded and to get food to those in need. Hong Kong International Airport, one of the world's busiest, announced Monday that it is canceling all flights that have not checked in, blaming anti-government protesters who flooded the airport and seriously disrupted air travel. All arriving flights would be allowed to land, the airport said. Thousands of protesters crowded the airport's main terminal after police were filmed violently cracking down on protesters Sunday night, rallying around a woman bleeding from her eyes, apparently after being shot with a beanbag round at close range. After weeks of protest, police are becoming more aggressive, according to protesters who suspect officers of dressing up as protesters themselves to arrest suspects and divide demonstrators. 5 Russian nuclear engineers who died in a rocket engine explosion have been buried in Sarov, a closed town 373 kilometers east of Moscow, where nuclear warheads are made. The Russian State Nuclear Agency, Rosatom, said the experts had been testing a nuclear-powered engine, but it gave no further technical details. The test was on an offshore platform in the Arctic at a naval test range. Russia had previously tested a nuclear-powered cruise missile, Burevestnik, but officials did not specify the system involved in Thursday's disastrous test. The explosion was followed by a 40-minute radiation spike in Severodvinsk, a city 40 kilometers east of the Noyonoska test range by the White Sea. Severodvinsk officials said radiation in the city reached 2 microsieverts per hour and then fell back to the normal 0.11 microsieverts. Both levels are too small to cause radiation sickness. Rosatom said 3 other engineers were injured in the blast and are now hospitalized. Experts in Russia and the West say the test was most likely linked to the 9M730 Burevestnik, meaning petrel, a type of seabird. President Vladimir Putin described the missile in a speech to the Russian parliament in March 2018. NATO gave it the designation SSC X9 Skyfall. Alejandro Giammattei, a former prisons director, won Guatemala's presidential runoff election Sunday. Giammattei, the right-wing Vamos Party candidate, beat former First Lady Sandra Torres. When Giammattei takes office January 14th, he will inherit leadership of a Central American nation shaken by years of political scandal and a wave of migration by people seeking asylum in the U.S. that has fueled tensions with the Trump administration. Guatemala is preparing for possible implementation of a safe third country agreement with Washington that would require it to consider asylum applications by immigrants from other Central American nations heading to the U.S.-Mexico border. Both Torres and Giammattei criticized the agreement. Torres rejected the notion that Guatemala is a safe country, while Giammattei criticized negotiations by an outgoing government. United Arab Emirates-backed southern Yemeni separatists have reportedly seized the presidential palace and other important sites in Aden, effectively wresting control of the port city from Yemen's internationally backed government. The seizure prompted the Saudi-led coalition fighting against the Houthis in Yemen's civil war to call for a ceasefire, which reportedly was held overnight. The Yemeni government described the seizure as a coup against institutions of the internationally recognized government. While the government and the southern separatists are nominally allies, that partnership has begun to fracture as the two sides maintain rival agendas for Yemen's future. The infighting threatens to open a new front in Yemen's 5-year civil war, which has killed tens of thousands of people and pushed the country to the brink of famine. The sea-to-sky gondola near Vancouver, BC, remains closed indefinitely after several cars plummeted to the ground because a cable was cut in what the Royal Canadian Mounted Police believe was an act of vandalism. At approximately 4:30 Saturday morning, operators were notified that the haul rope had fallen and the lift was inoperable. No guests or staff were riding the gondola during the incident in Squamish, British Columbia. According to the operator's website, the sea-to-sky gondola is closed for the foreseeable future due to a major lift incident. Most of the 30 cars attached to the cable, which is more than 2 inches in diameter, fell to the ground. The RCMP said they believe the cables were cut and this was a deliberate act of vandalism. A Squamish RCMP spokesperson said the gondolas sustained significant damage and investigators are treating the area as a crime scene. Tardigrades, pudgy, microscopic, 8-legged microanimals that have survived in some of the harshest environments on Earth, may now be the first living, permanent inhabitants on the moon. Israel Aerospace Industries said the Bereshit lander failed to make a soft landing in the moon's Sea of Serenity on its attempt in April and crashed. Nova Spivak, the founder of the Arch Mission Foundation, which created the Israeli lunar lander, believes the water-dwelling tardigrades survived the crash. The U.S. National Library of Medicine said tardigrades, also known as water bears, are one of the few species that have been found in the deepest parts of oceans and tallest mountaintops, and their ability to hibernate for decades and regenerate makes them stand out. The Arch Mission Foundation suggested if any earthbound animal can survive on the moon, it's tardigrades, which are one of the few species that survived unscathed through Earth's 5 known extinctions. And that's your update for this Monday, April 12th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.